all you people, I'm Doodle the Doodle Griffin, and welcome to another episode of Doodling with Doodle. Today's episode is all about everyone's favorite animatronics, Five Nights at Freddy's, although more specifically Security Breach. Security Breach. You either love it, or you really hate it. I'm for one of those people actually like Security Breach. Now, I'm not here to stand on a soapbox and tell you that it's a masterpiece of a game and it's the best Five Nights at Freddy's game ever. I know Security Breach has a lot of issues, not just with this gameplay, but also with this story too. Really a lot with this story. But that won't stop me from liking it, and I'm not telling you to like it either. I'm just gonna talk about why I like it. I won't talk about too much about the gameplay because I haven't actually played the game. I want to, I just haven't found the time to do it. And yes, I know it's a glitchy mess even after the updates, but that's why I want to play it. I enjoy glitchy games. I don't know why, I just find it fun. I always have a great time messing with game glitches. And it's just hilarious. Like, some of the results that you can get, it's just fun breaking the game. I can't really explain it, it just is. Though even though I have fun with that sort of thing, it still does not excuse the state of the game, especially on release date. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here about some of the things that I like about it. And one of the main reasons why I like this game is the two main leads, Gregory and Glamrock Freddy. I enjoy these two and their dynamics. Both of them together have this gentle giant and short feral gremlin energy, and I love it. Every interaction these two have is golden, and to be honest, it kind of makes up a lot of shortcomings. Well, a lot of shortcomings for me. Everybody else has their own opinions. This is just mine. I also really like how Freddy is your ally in this game, where in other games, Freddy's either, like one of the antagonists or the antagonist. And it was definitely a huge risk doing it this way, but I think it's a risk that pays off. I mean, who doesn't love this guy? He truly is the best boy, and if you couldn't tell by now, Glamrock Freddy is kind of my favorite character. I also like how you can fight back against the animatronics. In previous titles, you usually just hide in one room defending yourself, but in this game, you can actually do something about it. Again, this was a risk, and I think it paid off. Although it should not become a normal thing, and should just, in my opinion, should just be a security breach thing, or maybe even just like a once in a while sort of thing. Maybe to some people, destroying these robots take away some of the suspense, but don't lie to me that you didn't get at least some satisfaction by watching a go-kart fly into Roxy's face. I know a lot of people don't like Gregory for this reason too, and say, oh, it was the virus making them act this way, they don't deserve this, and Gregory's a monster for doing this. And to that I say, you're right. It's not their fault that they're evil, and I feel bad for them. But at the same time, it's fun watching Chica get smashed by a trash compactor, especially after her says she hangs out your door forever. However, I'm also a certified Gregory defender, and I do think he was right. Virus or not, he's just a kid, and those robots were trying to kill him. So I think he was justified in his actions. Although I would also be lying if I didn't think that he was a little sociopathic. I do think the Glamrocks deserved better, but in the sense that I think they needed more involvement in the story. Especially Monty and Chica, those two really got the short end of the stick. At least Chica got more to do in Help Wanted, like Help Wanted 2. But poor Monty, he barely had anything to do with Security Breach. He got shafted and ruined, and can only be found in the game files of Help Wanted 2, which is kind of sad because there's so much potential for his character. Because unlike other Fnaf games, the characters in these games actually have personalities. Which brings me to my next point on why I like this game, is that the characters actually have personalities, and they're not just there because of lore reasons. And I think that's why Security Breach brought so many new fans and why people like the Glamrock so much. Because these characters actually have personalities. Personalities that people can get attached to and make headcanons, and also make all sorts of fan stories and fan fictions. Especially with the fan content thing and animatics, I've even been doing that. If you've seen on my shorts page, I made a couple of them. Which makes the Ruin DLC all the more tragic, because these are sentient robots that were left to, ruin. I do hope these characters return in the future. Because despite the flaws of Security Breach, they did come out with some interesting characters. And even though the story is, well, less than desirable, let's be honest, doesn't mean it can't turn into something good. I think Ruin somewhat proved that. And I do mean not the story, not lore. Which, I have a confession to make. I don't really care about the lore. I mean, the reason why I got into this franchise was because the games looked fun to play. And I like the concept of trying to survive killer robots. Yeah, I'm in the minority of this fanbase that just play the games because they're fun and not for the lore. Even though earlier I said I haven't played Security Breach, I have played some of the other games. More specifically, Pizzeria Simulator, Ultimate Custom Night, because I'm cheap, and Help Wanted. I want to play Help Wanted 2, but I own an Oculus, and Help Wanted 2 hasn't come out on Oculus yet, at the time I'm writing and recording this at least. And I know you can play it through Steam, but I don't have a computer that's good enough to run it yet. I play these games not for the lore, but for the gameplay. I could care less about the lore. That being said, I do know a good chunk of it, because at one point, you know, when this franchise first came out, I did get interested in the lore like every other 13-year-old at the time. But as I grew older, I kind of just stopped really caring about it so much. And I also kind of started caring more about like the gameplay. Like, I keep going back to watching like these videos about Five Nights at Freddy's fan games actually, and how they talk about how the game is played and stuff, because I think the mechanics and like the core gameplay loop of Five Nights at Freddy's is very interesting to me. Though I kind of always had an interest in game development. I don't know if I'll ever get into it. If I do, it'd probably be just like a hobby or something like that, but yeah. Like, one of my favorite games is a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game called Polar Dread. You know, that game has like next to nothing story and lore, at least from what I've seen, at least in the game. It might have some like outside of the game, or if you look deeper. I just don't look that very deep, I guess, because like I said, I'm more interested in how the game is played. But yeah, that game doesn't need a story to be fun and scary, because it just is. Though the scary factor does help that it's in VR. So I don't know what to say about that. Security Breach is kind of somewhat of an exception, because even, like I said, I haven't played it, but here I am talking about it and what I like about it. But that's only because, like I said earlier, it's more of a character sort of thing. I really like the characters in this game. They're just so fun. You know, and they have all sorts of different personalities. That being said, from what I know of the story and the lore, I think this new era of Five Nights at Freddy's will benefit by just trying to tell its own interesting story and not worry about the lore of the older games. Because in my eyes, that whole arc kind of wrapped up. It doesn't need to like continue it. It can just start its own arc, you know, its own thing. Because I think the biggest downfall in Security Breach is that it kept trying to tie back to the older games. And you definitely see that in the Bird Trap ending, how they try to bring back a certain somebody. But to kind of wrap up this mini little segment, it just needs to focus on telling its own interesting story and not worry about what kind of happened in the older games. But mini little rant, kind of somewhat big rant aside, and getting back on track, another reason why I like this game is the animatronic designs. I just think they're really cool. This game has some really cool character designs. And I know some people complain that they're not scary enough, and yeah, they would be right. The designs do fall flat on the scarier factor. But just like in the general context of character design, like if you took these characters and put them in like an entirely different context or something like that, of not what the game was trying to do, they're really good character designs. Like, I can actually see this being used in like a TV show or something. Which does hurt its scary factor of how this game is supposed to be a horror game. But still, I like it. I can't help. I like what I like. That's all I can say. Though I think Chica does have a few points in the scary factor, but that's more on the way she's animated, because the way she just walks and like twitches around. I think that really helps with her. And the last thing I like about this game is the Pizzaplex itself, actually, because I don't know about you guys, but I always had this like kind of childhood fantasy thing. Actually, I still have it now, where I just think it'd be cool to stay at like some sort of mall or amusement park like after hours, like what that would be like. I just think it would be cool to see the whole place, like a place that's usually like busy and active, just completely void of anybody. I don't know why, I just think it would be cool. You know, just wandering around with the neon lights of the Pizzaplex. I just think that would be really neat. Although I'd much rather do it without the killer robots chasing me. But now it's time to move on to the final artwork. For this, I decided to draw a comic panel from one of the endings in Security Breach. That ending being the one where they escape in the truck that they stole. But I'm drawing it in my style, and I'm also going to be putting on my little twist on it. In the original, Freddy looks like totally fine in the picture, but in my version, I decided to have him be a little less confident in Gregory's driving abilities. And Gregory already looked like he was having way too much fun driving that vehicle, but for mine, I decided to dial that up a little bit more. There's not a whole lot to talk about this piece since I just did a redraw of it in my style, but I like how it turned out, and even though it's not as nice as some of the other pieces I've done so far, but I had a whole lot of fun doing it, and I think in the end that's what all matters in arts. It doesn't matter its final product, just as how much fun you had doing it along the way. I am thinking about doing another episode on Five Nights at Freddy's, but I think I'm just gonna talk about like the franchise in general and some games that I've actually played. But that's probably gonna happen until after I finish playing Help Wanted and played Help Wanted 2. But I'm gonna have to wrap this up here. Tune in next week for another episode of Doodling with Doodle, and where I will ABC y'all later. Goodbye!